Hello. Well, first of all, a big thank you to everyone who's here and to Susan and Robin for their work in setting this up. As Susan knows, I had another presentation ready that was held off at the time of Linda's illness. And at the time, I was also working on this particular present piece on the blue moon, which was to be presented in November, but I decided to present it today because of the timing of the blue moon. Also, as a heads up, I would like everyone to understand that I work with the gifts of evolutionary astrology through an anthroposophical understanding of karma, reincarnation, and the nature of the cosmos. The tools for understanding the dynamics of karma and reincarnation that I've gained through EA and anthroposophy go hand in hand as far as I've experienced. Keeping the esoteric spiritual realities in mind when endeavoring to understand the nature of astronomical phenomena, that is astrology, right? And as most know, this is a never-ending process of discovery and learning. Please bear with me as I start with certain esoteric understandings related to full moon and lunar and solar eclipses, but do try to keep them in mind as I continue. Later, based on these understandings, I will use different perspectives to specifically address the two Aquarian full moons of July and August this year, which I would like us to imagine as two related towers or signposts as a threshold for this year. According to Rudolf Steiner, human will and desire forces are continually flowing outward into cosmic space, into the spiritual world, and is transformed through the spiritual nature of the sun. The initiates of old understood this and taught that humanity's unbridled passions and instincts surged out into space. And under normal conditions, these impulses of will, which were sent out into the cosmos by human beings, are, as it were, burned up and consumed by the spiritual nature of the sun. Thus, they can only injure the human being, but do no real universal harm. So when there's a solar eclipse, human will forces flow unhindered into cosmic space. Then opportunity is given for which evil that is willed upon the earth to spread over the cosmos and taken up by beings who later inspire certain human beings. So an eclipse is a physical event with a spiritual reality behind it. When the lunar eclipse occurs, thoughts and will, including those mentioned, stream from the cosmos down upon the earth. And these thoughts have a closer relationship with the subconscious life than with the conscious life of us human beings. These initiates of olden times taught that who would wish to receive good thoughts coming from the cosmos to walk in the light of the full moon. However, there were those who desired to get hold of evil, diabolical thoughts, and they would choose that moment of a lunar eclipse for their nocturnal wanderings. But we shouldn't absorb these teachings in their old form, because then it would lead us into superstition. But we must learn to perceive the spiritual permeating these processes. The eclipses of the sun and moon may be seen as safety valves to avert danger and to provide an outlet for evil, like a valve on a pressure cooker. The solar eclipse serves the purpose of carrying out into space the evil spreading over the earth. And then the lunar eclipse allows such evil thoughts that's present in the cosmos to approach those human beings who desire and are karmically inclined to be possessed by them. And these people, as a rule, do not act in full consciousness, but it is reality. Okay, the full moons that I'm addressing are, so-called regular full moons, if you will. And in this light, the situation we find ourselves in will prove to be less challenging than it would be if these were part of an eclipse cycle. In July 2021, there was a full moon at 1 degree 26 minutes Aquarius, opposing the sun at the same degree as Leo. And these positions are at the beginning of their respective signs. On the 22nd of August, there was another Aquarian full moon, which occurred at 29 degrees 37 minutes Aquarius, in the sun in Leo. And this blue moon is a full moon occurring twice in the same sign within 1 month. And it's interesting to me that the first happened at the beginning of Aquarius and the second at the end of Aquarius. being both full moons, and each were culminations within 2 different moon cycles, from new moon to new moon. The first new moon was on July 9th, the first quarter on July 17th, and the third quarter on July 31st. The next moon was on August 8th, first quarter on August 15th. The third quarter will be on August 30th, and then the new moon on September 6th. Of course, there have been previous cycles from which these 2 are continuations. However, I'm focusing on these 2 cycles in July and August. These 2 full moons occurred during a period in which the much longer cycle of Pluto transiting through Capricorn and Saturn squaring Uranus in Aquarius and Taurus, respectively. Since 2008, Pluto's been in Capricorn, indicating the breakdown and death of all structures that's been established in every aspect of life, yeah? But what is not in alignment with progressive spiritual values really gets knocked down. And these breakdowns and deaths provide the seed for rebirth and the birth of human capabilities. The square between Saturn and Uranus shows a conflict between the rigidly established forms of former thinking and the imaginations that are urging rebellion and destruction of the forms, in habit and whatever. The first full moon was at 1 degree 26 Aquarius. The Sabian symbols for this full moon is for 2 degrees Aquarius and 2 degrees Leo for the sun. The Sabian symbol for 2 degrees Aquarius is an unexpected thunderstorm. And the key word is unexpected. And this has both positive and negative connotations, whether the storm is external or internal. The thing is, even if it's unexpected, the processes are not really known. And the manifestation of a storm is often perceived as coming out of the blue, right? Only when we're not aware of its cause and the ensuing processes leading to the storm. If you have a thunderstorm in your life, it's best to become introspective to see why and how it arose. Although understanding the why usually comes later, yeah? An epidemic of mumps is a Sabian symbol for 2 degrees Leo. And this expresses how one's behavior can infect the behavior of others. When unconscious aspects are the determining factors, people lose themselves in their self-deficiencies, right? Their weaknesses. And lemming-like, they follow personas and concepts that give them a sense of power and meaningfulness. Individuals who are sensitive and mindful to the practical needs and usefulness of everyday situations are more capable of participating purposefully in current affairs. And this opposition of sun and moon shows a stark awareness due to a push-pull between thought and will, leading to rethinking of what one's purpose is. And socially, this is playing out in the tension between those who are susceptible to antisocial thoughts and divisive propaganda, feeding those who are holding onto old paradigms of power and control, and those who are holding and aiming for the good of all. Being a full moon, this dichotomy is strongly experienced, yeah. Being the first full moon of this blue moon, it brings these aspects to light, yet there's much that is still unconscious or hidden. With all that is being brought to light, why is it that on a collective level, it is difficult for so many to be decisive and active to change what is obviously destructive to democracy, human welfare, and justice? The second full moon in Aquarius was on August 22nd, the other day, at 29 degrees 37 minutes. The Sabian symbol for 30 degrees Aquarius is a field of Ardoth in bloom. Now, Ardoth is the Hebrew word for a field in bloom or bronze. So, the image of a field in bloom, what seemed to be a surprising rise from the depths, is now in full manifestation for our awareness. And bronze is an alloy of iron and copper, right? The melding of will, Mars, iron, with love, Venus, copper, gives us the courage to give ourselves to the world. Can you see what in the universe is friendly? Do I see or pay attention to the positive and good that I've done in the world? Now, these are questions that each one of us need to ask ourselves. To the degree that we blossom our positivity and goodness to others, we gain self-illumination. And to the degree one is self-absorbed because one's gifts are not given, it's easier to live in reaction to fantasies, as evidenced by the likes of QAnon followers and their ilk. An unsealed letter is the Sabian symbol for 30 degrees Leo. And this indicates something is free for all to see. There's an intrinsic trust that people will hold to their integrity. We have to ask ourselves, do I live in such integrity so that I am fully confident? The respect we have for ourselves inspires others to give us respect. Indiscretion is a different kind of blossoming, discrimination, and is now collectively running rampant amongst others. Going back to the thought that these full moons are the culminations of their cycles, the new moon of the first cycle was on July 9th, 2021, at 18 degrees 1 minute Cancer. And this set the tone for the beginning of a new cycle of establishing identity, both personal and societal. The Sabian symbol for the 19th degree of Cancer is a priest performing a marriage ceremony. It describes the role of conformity in life. This degree shows when positively working, there's a brilliance in bringing various aspects of one's life into a positive gestalt. And when negative, there's a bondage to outer forms. In society, where can we see the bringing of elements into a positive vision and function? In US politics, for example, we have the endeavors of progressive figures like AOC to bring about policies towards social balance in the economic sphere. Where do we see the same kind of positive building within ourselves? During this time of social upheaval, if you've noticed, many have heeded the call to take the restrictions in life and to find what is most important in the value, right? In my own life, after a year and a half of COVID restrictions, this has led to very good friends moving away and other friends becoming consumed by conspiracies and propaganda. My social life as an immigrant, I live in Ecuador, is dissolved, really. But my family life, which was already good, but is now bringing deeper and richer lessons for me, how to live more fully in love. The following first quarter was on July 17th, squaring the sun in Cancer. This shows the constructive conflict between feeling and will, instinct and purpose, as it lives in the tension between how we relate, what our values and thoughts are, and what our feelings and sense of security and purpose are. The symbol for the moon's degree is an eagle turning and a large white dove changing into each other. And this points to an interrelating working of will and love in the world. These are separate impulses, but when in harmony, one becomes adept at bringing polarized forces into harmony. And this leads to tactfulness when dealing with others. And when there's harmony between will and love, one becomes more flexible while remaining unswerving in one's values and goals. Otherwise, there's a tendency to be fascinated by trivialities and delighted by fancy and being swayed by others. You can see this in the public life. The Sabian symbol for the sun's degree, contentment and happiness and luxury. People reading on Davenports. This symbol is an imagination having a mastery of things in one's outer life and using all of one's capabilities. This is a call to strengthen oneself, and a warning against self-indulgence. There's the healthy, taking time for relaxation that is rejuvenating, but there can also be a loss of reality through needless self-living. At any time, but especially during this COVID time, we can find contentment in slowing down and making the best of each moment, finding the positive in the outer restrictions to our lives, or we can indulge ourselves with food, drink, and other outer contentments. that we justify as something we deserve. The third quarter moon of July 31st, coming up at 8 degrees Taurus, 833. This waning square indicates crises in the development of new forms and their release, which makes up the building of a new foundation for which a new cycle of activity begins. Sabian symbol for the moon's position at 9 degrees Taurus, a Christmas tree decorated. The symbol is about symbolization itself and the sharing of symbols amongst ourselves. Yeah. And through this activity, we experience self-renewal, especially in community, through reconnecting with spiritual archetypes. On a personal level, this degree shows how we feel self-satisfaction through sharing our capabilities and potentials with each other. Otherwise, we take from life, enjoying what we can, without offering anything in return. This would lead us to put others under obligation in some way. And there are those who are finding meaning and soul nourishment in giving to others, and endeavoring to create, or at least envision, new foundations for social relations. Those who operate in survival mode, though, are wanting to get what they can, yeah, or defending their rights and duties based on black or white perspectives. It's usually at the expense of others. At 8 degrees, 33 minutes Leo, the sun gives us the 9 degrees Sabian symbol, dental work. And dental work is a very real practicality, yeah. Besides a cleaning, it often has to be done because of negligence. And negligence can result in great pain, loss of teeth, or even worse. In what ways do we human beings conscientiously steward ourselves, our relationships, in the world? Going back to the beginning of the cycle, the new moon of July 9th called to us to find the positive in ourselves and in the present social upheavals to create new forms. The first quarter on July 17th called us to be flexible within change and upheaval, to remain unswerving in our values and goals, despite being surrounded by polarization. That's bringing harmony into the world, bit by bit. Otherwise, there's a tendency to be swayed or distracted by the polarization, the polarized views, assaulting our senses or feelings. The ways that the impulses of the cycle are determine how we respond to the unexpected in our lives at the full moon of the 23rd. Humanity is splitting between those who are growing towards good, the good for all of humanity, and those who are struggling for power and control. And this can be seen as an age-old struggle, but look closely, I think, and you'll see that it's intensifying. Well, moving ahead, the new moon of August 8th at 1614 Leo gives us the Sabian symbol of 17 degrees Leo, a non-vested church choir. This begins a new cycle of releasing new ideas and potentials gained by experiences from the previous cycle. There are those endeavoring to move forward towards bringing enlivened heart forces through their interest and concern for fellow human beings, while others willfully strive for popularity or inclusion, even by acting on negative, unthinking distortions of reality. It's interesting, isn't it, that the new moon symbol is church-related, as is the symbol of the first new moon of July 9th. What was being called for by the first new moon, a priest performing a marriage ceremony, was for individuals to intelligently bringing the many facets of life into an organic, positive unity, creating meaningfulness in all activities and relationships. The first quarter moon on August 15th at 23 degrees Scorpio brings a sense of crises and how we instinctively build up our ego activity and put ourselves out in the world. This sense of crises comes from the pull away from what we were establishing at the new moon. Whatever positive forms or directions we had established is now faced with the increasing polarizations that we're surrounded by. From another perspective, humanity is becoming increasingly polarized also. There are those taking polarized positions and those who are not necessarily taking sides, but taking a balanced middle path. Where is the deeper division? Between those who oppose each other, or is it between those who take sides and those who are walking the middle path? The symbol for 23 degrees Scorpio, a bunny metamorphosed into a fairy, takes us away from the church symbolism of societal norms and brings us into the elemental world via nature, the transformation of purely naive and instinctive impulses into our ideals and aspirations. We are called to make this transition, Otherwise, the tendency to live out of our lizard brain becomes the norm, and we as humanity will be a very distinctive marker of the division of humanity. This leads us to the second full blue moon, just this past August 22nd. This culmination in the last degree of Aquarius, the field of our death and bloom, asks us if we have the courage to give ourselves to the world and to trust in the spiritual world that's behind all things. And do we trust the positive and good that we ourselves do in the world? To what degree are we self-absorbed and living in reaction to fantasies, fears, and illusions? Retrograding Jupiter is in conjunct the moon at 20th degree of Aquarius. The Sabian symbol for this degree is a tree felled and sawn. And this points to the enthusiasm that's needed to carry out one's will into the world. Interestingly, the image of a felled tree relates to what I had written in July about Jupiter retrograde in Pisces. The expansiveness of Jupiter while retrograde is related to how we have to sometimes prune a plant for there to be more growth. We sometimes have to prune from our lives what doesn't work for our soul growth. When we do, we grow to be something greater in surprising, sometimes very satisfying ways. The pruning off of limiting beliefs we have will help us to become more honest and authentic about ourselves. Jupiter conjunct this full moon is my jumping off point now for wrapping up this presentation. And here I want to come back to the idea of how these Aquarian blue moons are like two towers or signposts to this year. And the more that I looked into this, I see them really as signposts, a threshold for the cultural age in which we live. Now, we've just entered the last third of this age. We consider that the vernal equinox enters Aquarius in the 27th century, not that long from now. But we're in the proverbial home stretch before the Aquarian age. We can see it, we can feel it, seeds have been sown, but the lingering untransformed karmic elements and all that we have built up to this point need to be dealt with. Our collective karma is both rearing its ugly head in those who are not awake, clinging onto old dynamics for power and control. And it's being recognized, though, by others. We're being called to rise to new levels of being human. Aquarius calls us to rethink everything that we have built up individually and socially. The focus is on humanitarian ideals. But there's also technological development that's in the picture. And this blue moon brought out how humanitarian ideals are served by technology or not. The immense amounts of money, for instance, spent by a few billionaires for a short space flight provides a stark contrast to the immense numbers of people who are starving. The brilliant intellectual power behind science is, well, more often than not, used for fulfilling the hubris of individuals, used by the political, militaristic, and corporate powers, which end up for destructive ends, both intentionally and unintentionally. The Uranian sudden change of life since human transmission of COVID-19 was first confirmed in January of 2020 is still being felt, now, a year and a half later. This blue moon shed a light on this. We've had to rethink our lives while dealing with the issues that arose since COVID. The impulse for thinking our lives, rethink our lives, depends on the level of consciousness people are. And the suddenness of things drove many into introspection. And we questioned ourselves about our lifestyles, what's necessary or not, personally and socially. And in relation to this questioning, we need to ask ourselves, how have we further divided and polarized ourselves? The idea of community building has come more to the fore for many. Yet this has been also translated into its antithesis by others, by glomming into groups of people who think alike and hating those who do not. The first full moon was in the first decade of Aquarian, as in Aries, subjective and forceful expression of Aquarian qualities. The second full moon was in the last degree of Aquarius, giving it a Piscean end of cycle spiritual emphasis and karmic culmination or conclusion of Aquarian expression. There are those, including astrologers who I know, who feel that a focus on the polarization in society is mainly US and Eurocentric and does not include other cultural experiences. I'd like to address this with a couple points. First, we are all worthy humans, right? We karmically gravitate to cultures, families, and groups that mirror our challenge our evolutionary states. And as individuals vary in our evolutionary states, so do cultures. As individuality evolves over time, so does the evolving of our spiritual nature. The destiny of becoming individuals has been to enter into materialism and intellectuality. The karma of this is the separating and polarizing in society. And this will increase to the degree that individuals do not experience spiritual activity within themselves or in society. Now, throughout world history, there have been cultures and their representative countries at the forefront of evolutionary progress. The European impulse found its latest expression in the US, which has developed and come to its Pluto return during a very materialistic and increasingly divisive period for humanity. The actions within and of the US not only affect all, but are symptomatic of the challenges for all humanity, in my point of view. The pandemic phenomena has affected the entire world. Our binary narratives that have already existed are in our face now, placing us on opposing sides, vaccinated or unvaccinated, white, black, climate advocates, climate deniers, male, female, Democrat, Republican, spirit, matter, woke, sheeple. And after a year and a half, can't we see that we're all in this together, whether we like it or not? We're all being infected and broken by the divisive splitting of our humanity into bits and pieces that are quantified and measured into what is right or wrong. The splitting is the true fire, the true virus that ends in acts of hatred and coercion, connecting. Well, I'm sorry, just got lost in my thoughts. Through the coercion, through our disconnection and the closed minds that have ensued. The Aquarian Threshold shows where we are facing this polarization. We must begin to break the binary narratives inside ourselves first. So I'll end with a quote by this Italian philosopher, Massimo Scalagero. The present time is ominous. There's no rhetorical expression. Whoever knows how things truly are knows that those few people who have any inner responsibility should no longer wait one more minute and should not put off by a single instant their decision to make those self-overcoming steps that they really know in secret what they should be. Tasks of this kind can no longer be put off anymore. We are at the eve of events that can be gravely destructive for mankind or signal its rebirth under the sign of the spirit. So here's where I end. And if there are any questions, I would be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you, Michael. That was very illuminating. I love the process of going through the degrees and then pulling it all together and talking about, you know, what it all means to us.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, it was there's a lot there. I really wanted to go further with the rest of the moon phases after this last full moon, but I just felt like it would drag on a little bit.
No, much appreciated. I don't see any questions, so.
Okay, well, if anybody has questions at any other time, they're free to email me.
Okay, sounds good. Or contact you on Facebook?
On Facebook would be good, or at the starpainter@gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Take care and a good night.